All right, so for grading our pant and bodysuit, we're going to start with the pant. So I gave you a graded spec. The best way to kind of see, you can go through and calculate what the grading is, but if you actually copy this and paste it over here and just delete the base size, it shows you the movements because these are all formulated. So just note that this, when you do this, this is cumulative grading, okay? So each size is grading 2 inches, like 31.5 to 33.5 is 2, but it looks cumulative here because each formula has the 2-inch grade. So you see like +2, +2, okay? So basically what this tells me is my waist and it looks like my hip are both grading 2 inches per size around the circumference. Okay, I have a front and back rise, a thigh, and my knee and my leg bottom are grading a 1/2 inch. Okay, so I've also provided you a schematic so that we're all on the same page with our rule numbers, but you will be creating the movements for each number. Okay, I'm not going to walk through every single one today. We'll do that in class, but just to kind of get you started and give you an idea of how I would go about doing this. So for the waist, you're going to want to split your grade evenly. So, you know, when we do a shirt, we put all of our panel grade at the side seam. But on a pant, we're actually adding grade to all sides of the pant. So for example, on your waist, if you have a 2-inch grade, you have 4 panels, but each panel has 2 sides. Okay, so it's a little bit of a different calculation than we've done before. So each panel is still getting a 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch on the front, 1/2 inch on the back, times 2 is 2 inches. But instead of adding 1/2 inch here, we're going to split it between the 11 and the 12. So really, we're going to end up getting a 1/4 inch grade here and a 1/4 inch grade here. Okay. Okay. So, where did my numbers go? Okay. So, just using some of my work from my earlier schematic. So I'm going to do a 1/4 inch per size. Now, the first time we worked through one of these, we determined our positive and negatives after. I'm going to go ahead and do it all together. So essentially, so if I'm looking at a 1/4 inch per size on my waist, right? So my smaller sizes are going to go inside my panel, which is actually in the negative, right? So I have a negative, negative, and then my larger sizes are going outside of my piece, which according to my axis is positive. So I have positive, positive, okay? But then for my 11, it's going to be the opposite, right? So my smaller pieces, my smaller sizes are going this way, which is positive, and my larger sizes are going down, which is negative, okay? Okay, all right. And then I'm going to do the same thing for my hip, right? So my hip had the same grade as my waist, okay? So I'm going to do the same Y rules there, okay? It's being so slow, I'm sorry. So let's go ahead and just say, I'm going to say my Y rules, I'm going to write in blue, okay? And then for my X rules, we'll talk about those in just a little bit, okay? All right. Okay, so I'm going to skip my thigh for a minute because actually a lot of my thigh will depend on my rise, and I need to work out my rise and out seam to then figure out what's left to add here, okay? So I'm going to skip down to my knee and leg bottom because these are very easy and self-explanatory. So for my knee, I have 1/2 inch, and for my leg bottom, I have 1/2 inch, okay? So I am going to take my 1/2 inch, and I have 2 panels, right? So my knee comprises of the front knee and the back knee, and each panel has 2 edges that are getting movement, okay? So I'm going to take my 1/2 inch and I'm going to divide it by 4. 1/2 inch divided by 4 is 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to change these to 1/8 of an inch. Okay. Now, same rule goes here. So my smaller sizes are actually going up, which is positive, and my larger sizes are going down, which is negative. Okay. So this is going to be the same rule here. Okay. And then on my opposite side, I just have to switch my negatives. Okay. All right. So these are my Y rules. Perfect. Okay. The other thing we have to pay attention to is placements. Okay. So for example, your knee is at 13 inches and it's going to stay at 13 inches. So our inseam doesn't grade. So this point here has no X movement. Okay. Because we're not going to have any X movement at our crotch or our inseam, because our inseam does not grade. Okay, so that means this placement stays the same. So there's 0 grade in the X direction for 18 and 15. There's 0 grade for the X direction in 16 and 17. So really, I probably could have used the same rules here. This could have been 15, 15, 18, 18. But it's okay to, as a general practice, to have different rules at your knee and leg bottom, because oftentimes we will do a slightly different grade at the leg bottom than at the knee. Okay. All right. So let's talk about our rise. Our rises are getting, okay. So my thigh is grading an inch per size. Okay. Sorry, I changed this at some point and did not update this. Okay. So an inch per size. So for today's sake, to make this as simple as possible, we're going to take that thigh measurement or the thigh grade, and we're going to distribute it evenly. Okay, so we're going to take, if it's an inch, we have 2 panels, but we have 2 edges. So that's an inch divided by 4, which is 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so we're essentially going to make the same movements that we did at our hip at our crotch. Okay, and we'll do the same on the back. Okay, so because our thigh and our hip and waist are grading the same, that means this seam is gonna kind of maintain its curve and angle. Okay, which means this length isn't really growing per size at the crotch. Okay, it is, the thigh is growing, but so is the hip and so is the waist, and they're growing at the same proportion. Okay, this isn't always the case, but we've sort of simplified the grading here to make this a simpler project. Okay, so because these are all growing the same amount, I'm not gaining anything here, which means my rise adjustment, my rise movement is all going to get added at the top. Okay, so I've got 3/8 per size on my front and my back rise, which means I'm going to, let's do this. Okay, I'm going to make my X movements in green. So this is going to be 3/8. This will be 3/8. This will be 3/8. This will be 3/8. Okay. And just since we're here, So my smaller sizes are going to be going in towards the body, which is to the left, which is in the negative movement. And my larger sizes are going out, which is in the positive movement. Okay, so that's my X movement, and it's going to happen at both the 11 and the 12 grade points. All right. Now my hip has a placement. My hip placement is also grading 3/8 of an inch. So if my hip placement is moving with my waist, it needs to have the same X grade as my waist, right? We talked about this with front neck drops and back neck drops. If we want this line to move with the waist, it has to have the exact same X movement, okay? So we're going to put the same X movement on our hip, all right? Now we've already talked about how our thigh is not going to get an X movement because we don't want our inseam to grade at all. And we've already talked about our knee is not getting an X movement because it is placed at 13 inches from the crotch point for every single size, okay? So that is really our pants grade. Our back will have the same movements. Just note your back rise has a different rule number. Sometimes back rises will grade a little bit differently to give enough of a saddle and a hook here. For today, we're going to keep the same grade just to keep it really, really simple. Okay. So the next step is creating your rule table. So you're going to go into your folder on the Z drive and you're going to go into process and choose grade rule, okay? Because you're just creating a grade rule from scratch. You need to note from your graded spec what your base size is and what your movement between sizes is. Okay, so I'm going to say this is TC322 Project 2 cargo pant grade. Actually, sorry, grade table. We're gonna make one table, cargo pant plus bodysuit, okay? We don't usually do this, but for simplicity's sake and grading for us, this will be a lot easier. Okay, so base size medium, smallest size extra small. You're gonna enter your size breaks. Large, extra large. Okay, we're gonna save as. This will be your initials and 2405, I believe this assignment is. 2405. Okay, so save that. And let's go back to your rule table. So in your rules, okay, you're going to create your, I think there's 21 rules, okay? And remember your 1 is going to be a hold, always a hold, okay? 5, 6, so on, okay? You don't have to do them all right now. So make sure your 1 is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, okay. Now I think our pant, I think the way I made the schematic, our pant actually starts at 11, that's right, okay? So you can go ahead and enter in those rules up to whatever we need. 10. Okay. All right, now I'm just going to demonstrate a couple of these to show you what I expect. So the 11 rule is your center front, center back, waist. Okay, and so we're going to look at our schematic and we're going to say, all right, the X is minus 0.375, minus 0.375, positive 0.375, positive 0.375, okay? And the Y is positive a quarter, negative a quarter, negative a quarter, okay? So I'm just taking what's on my schematic and I'm entering it in here with my positives and negatives, and I'm making sure I'm labeling this, okay? So this is side seam waist, okay? And I'll continue to do this for everything I've written on my schematic.